Thank you. Very good morning, everyone. I know all of us battle through the AQIs, which are touching, almost 4 digits now, to this place. Can I have the presentation up, please? But that's the reality of cities and smart cities. Each city will have unique problems, unique solutions. Or even being one of the solution, and things like that. And if you go to several other cities, which we're going to talk about, they have their own unique set of problems, like migrant population, tourist influx, seasonal increases in the tourists, and so on and so forth. And I still need the deck up. Thanks. Okay, so I think, over the last 5 years that the country, picked up on, started this journey on urban transformation led by the Smart Cities mission, we have come a long way. These 100 cities and beyond, the citizens in them, there's a lot of lives which have been touched and transformed, and technology has played a major role in that. And we, as a technology company, through this process, have also gained a lot, right from the point when we were putting together the solution for first of the smart city projects in the country, where we had to leverage the experience and expertise that HPE globally had by virtue of working with some of the leading smart cities across the world, whether it's Dubai, Auckland, and so on and so forth, to a stage now when we have actually picked up so much of information, knowledge, and expertise that we are cross-pollinating it back to our global teams. And there are regular interactions from Indian teams who share our learnings, our experiences, the technologies that we have implemented, and the interventions that we have been helping cities do in terms of the newer projects and requirements which are coming up globally in other cities. So what I'm going to focus on today is pick up some of the technology trends which are happening irrespective of the segment or the vertical that we are in, and how, in the context of smart cities, it could provide certain solutions or certain options for us to look at as we forge and pivot into Smart Cities 2.0. So, and it all starts with the citizen, right? So the citizen has a whole lot of expectations, and the solutions that the cities and the committees work on have to be centered around that in terms of their experience, in terms of how they're going to run livelihood, how they're going to commute, how they're going to interact with the government, avail of services, how they're going to interact with each other, and how they're going to use actually public spaces, and how actually they're going to leverage environmental factors and things like that. And what we've seen is that the technology actually plays a huge role in all of that, including, driving the citizen behavior. Small example is when I was driving in an Uber this morning to this place, and this stretch between Vasant Kunj and JNU, which is kind of typically free. People drive at whatever speed they feel like. And suddenly the driver slowed down. And I asked him, why? Is there a cop around? And he said, no, there is a camera right up there, which automatically captures and triggers a challan and whatever. And, and this camera was implemented possibly a few weeks back and not months back and stuff. And that is the behavioral impact that the technology has already created there. So, in a city, we see a whole set of business drivers that the city is focused on, right from creating infrastructure, ensuring education, workforce training, ease of doing business, starting business, attracting investment through incentives, and so on and so forth. And these business outcomes have a set of required outcomes that the city is focused on. And each city, and we have seen this through the journey of these 100 cities, will prioritize based on their own demographics, on their own geographical, economical, and social situations. And these actually tie back into the potential technology solutions that all of us work on from a technology perspective. So it could be as simple as smart metering in terms of how you're actually creating, tracking utilities, how you're ensuring that they're provided, to a little more on the technology platform around cloud, and how do you use the cloud technologies to actually deliver apps, services across the city in a very seamless fashion, and allow citizens to interact with government and government to interact with government, different officials and partners who need. So an intelligent city is a multi-layered model. You have to create these layers, and as we go forward, I will talk a little more about that. But the fact is that the technology changes at a much faster pace compared to the time a city takes to transform. A technology cycle in terms of refresh and the hype cycles is typically between 4 to 7 years, while when you see cities in terms of physical transformation, in terms of a generational shift and so on and so forth, they take almost up to about 10 years. And I just wanted to do a contrast here. So the photographs that you see are actually the ICCC in Gwalior. That's the previous one. It's a heritage building which was given to us to transform. And this heritage building now houses one of the most advanced ICCC centers on the globe. It kind of competes in terms of technology and the feature set with anyone, which any of the large cities across the globe is using. And that's the power of technology in terms of picking up what is existing and transforming it into a much more impactful solution. And like I was mentioning earlier, every city has a unique trajectory, whether it's Rome or Dubai. And a city is only smart if it helps all of us as citizens, as participants in the city. So we got to have a specific strategy. We got to have right components in terms of the citizens that are there, in terms of the businesses and the other economic and geographical factors that we deal with. And we need to have prioritized outcomes and accordingly pace our technology interventions and, excuse me, technology interventions and the strategy that we have to implement those. So, in summary, Intelligent City is edge-centric, cloud-enabled, data-driven. And what it does is to enhance the way all of us live and work. And these are the technologies in terms of the edge, the cloud, and the data that we're seeing fueling the digital transformation across all segments, whether you are in manufacturing or you are in telecom or you are in classical government or banking and so on and so forth. And these are the technologies which are also impacting the way smart cities are actually planning out and executing their solutions. And what is important is that all these solutions got to be sustainable. They have to continuously evolve to the changing needs of the city. What, for example, Delhi as a city needed a few decades back is a lot different. And once the metro came in, the way we behaved, the way we commuted, all that changed. So the solutions that you implement cannot be static. They cannot be so rigid that the minute it changes, the minute the environment changes, the solutions become redundant and useless, and it reflects your current as well as your future needs. And just a couple of days back, we were talking to someone, and they have implemented a handheld device which unfortunately works on 3G. 3G is being retired circle by each of the telcos, and all this investment now will possibly go waste because they have no control on when the telco will pull out the 3G support from that city or the circle, and suddenly all the investment, the training, the platform that they have developed on this device is going to be useless. So these are some of the specific trends that seemingly impact how the smart city and technology interplay happens. So like I said, the cities have to be edge-centric because edge is where all of us live and work. Edge is where the citizens are. Edge is where they interact with the utilities. They interact with how the garbage is picked up. They interact with, they pay their bills. They interact with each other. They have the space. They have to be cloud-enabled to be pervasive, to ensure that there is availability of apps and interactions everywhere. They have to be data-driven because that's where the insights and the planning and also the continuous operational cycle comes from. And some of the trends which are impacting all of this in terms of edge-centric is 5G, and that's going to open a whole lot of new possibilities for all the segments, but specifically for smart city because IoT, which was being implemented as bits and pieces in some of our cities, is going to be all pervasive because then you can actually capture and bring back data from all these steps. This also is excuse me, also fueling something called edge analytics because now suddenly you have so many cameras, so many sensors all across, and you just don't want to bring all the data back. And that's the prediction that 7 out of 10 data bytes will never see a data center because you want to actually do that. And one of the cities we are implementing that technology where this equipment, the high-end compute analytics servers are going to be mounted on poles. They have the compute capacity to handle millions of data bytes in terms of video flows, sensor data, and so on and so forth, and they can run real-time or a near real-time analysis depending on what city wants, and run an SOP there itself. So you really don't need to bring that back to the data center. It will also trigger things like autonomous things, and we are already seeing some cities using drones. And how do you actually create a mesh? How do you ensure that a whole lot of drone-led or similar devices which can run on their own help city planning and help execution? But it will also lead to something about security, because suddenly you have the entire fabric based on technology, and that needs to be secure, because your data centers, your cloud, your edge, all of that, and the data traveling in between of these devices needs to be secure. And that will lead to transparency and traceability, because that's going to become a really important thing. We have seen regulations like GDPR, and the government is, I understand, working on a data privacy law as to how do you handle citizen data, how do you handle the data that you're coming to, that's coming to you in various interactions, and so on and so forth. It'll also lead to multi-experience environments, which is multi-sensory, multi-touchpoint interfaces. And some of you might have experienced in retail chains and how your interaction is not limited to the app, but they also have a voice interaction, they have a chat interaction, they have a bot interaction, and it's just going to evolve and explode. We're also going to talk about hyper-automation. Leveraging the technologies that machine learning, data analytics, and so on and so forth, you will have hyper-automation scenarios in your apps, which means that all the manual processing that you used to do or the manual intervention points, now you can automate, and your digital automation can be much more pervasive compared to what it is today. So all these are going to impact the way we are looking at smart cities and how we are pivoting towards Smart City 2.0. And I'm just going to pick 2 or 3 examples out of that in the interest of time. So the intelligent city of the future is going to be hyper-connected. Everyone and everything is connected, sharing data with each other. There will be security and intelligence, and let me underline security because that's going to be really important, and intelligence which will be embedded everywhere. In your devices, in your waste bins, and so on and so forth, and you'll see a whole lot of evolution compared to what it is today, basis what we've seen. And the data is going to be new currency, because you're going to be having a whole lot of data which you could monetize, which you could also leverage in terms of insights that are required for a day-to-day operation, as well as for planning from a future perspective. I'm going to take one example of that a little later, but this is about redefining experience at the edge, and these technologies, are going to help you that. And this is what I was referring to. This is, I think, IDC data. 75% of all data will be created outside of traditional data centers. They are only going to be doing OLTP and business-to-business kind of applications. The interactions with all of us is going to be actually at the edge. So they're going to be context-aware. They're going to actually revolutionize things like personalized healthcare in terms of helping predictive maintenance. How do you leverage that? How do you ensure utilities? How do you get campuses, colleges connected, stadiums, and how do you do surveillance and video analytics, which a lot of cities are already embarked on? And how do you ensure that your various departments are collaborative and productive? And this is how you're going to interact with the whole ecosystem, right from healthcare, retail, stadiums, everything that a city does, utilities, transport, and actually, deliver. And some of these technologies are already there around wireless, 5G, SD-WAN, and so on and so forth, because there'll be about 55 billion devices which will be connected worldwide. And this is the second pivot, which is fairly important, which is how do you actually unleash the power of all this data that you're collecting and creating on a daily basis? How do you ensure that it helps you create new business models which did not exist, have new revenue streams from a city perspective, how they monetize data? And a lot of cities are kind of thinking about it. They have think tanks who are working in terms of how do you remain compliant to the data policies of the government, but are able to leverage data in terms of allowing businesses to use that to target customers, to deliver services, and so on and so forth. How do you automate and make it on demand, and how do you ensure there is a framework in terms of always on all the time? And this is one example that I wanted to pick up of how all this is converging. And this is a very simple thing of parking, right? So we had traditional parking where you went in, you give the keys to the guy, and he parked for you or you parked yourself, and moved on to now what most of the cities in India also have, or many have implemented in the public parking spaces, which tells you whether it's how many are available, how many are not. Okay, so I wasn't sure whether it was available or unavailable, but how many parkings are available, and you have a parking space of 100, and you say 50 are available, 50 are not, and so on and so forth, to a stage when actually it integrates with the larger city ecosystem, where you're not able to just identify which is the best place to park, depending on the traffic flow, the destination that you have, and how do you actually best reach it. But it also automates the collection of the fare, in terms of flow. It also guides you when you need to step out, how do you actually merge back into the traffic flow, and hence creates an experience which is way beyond what is available currently. And this is where all these technology merge in a very, very simple example of how you actually commute and how do you park. And that's the evolution that all these technologies are going to enable. And this is the last thing that I'm going to pick up for today's discussion, which is around security, because as you connect all of this, you've got to ensure your data is flowing security. And especially for cities, maintaining control where every device is storing, every device is computing, there is a waste bin, there is a truck which is connected, and so on and so forth. This whole thing around security is going to become hyper important, because an attack could lead to a loss of function. And that is the thing that is going to worry most of the city administrators going forward, because it's so connected on technology that any impact is going to lead to a loss of a specific function or a larger set of functions. And simple stats around the cybersecurity and the threats, which are going to amount to about $6 million. And hence, you got to ensure the data and control is secured at every point. Who's getting into the system, who's not. The simple technologies, which the ministry has also pioneered, things like user and entity behavior analysis based on a very strong AI engine. What it does is to ensure that every device on your network, right from your sensor to your thing, last 1 minute. Okay. And so it protects, detects, and helps you recover, because that's fairly important, because whatever you do. And so this is the data platform or the intelligent city platform for the future, which allows you to scale, which allows you to navigate the changes in your environment as they happen, and it can extend to millions and millions of devices. So as the cities go through this transformation, and when they plan, digital infrastructure will become another layer on the city blueprint. As they plan the physical spaces, they will need to figure out the digital infrastructure layer which is going to sit on top of it. And physical and virtual will actually evolve and learn together from these real situations and acting in a similar context. So I'll not spend time on this. This is the last slide, and this is something that we're really proud of in terms of engaging with several of these cities. We've learned a lot. We have gained a lot from this experience of interacting, understanding, helping them implement technologies, and these are some of the examples from across the country where we're present. So we're around, and we're looking forward to the engagement. Thank you so much.